life, the bright lights, the type the crowd likes. Where you at, ballers? Ladies love me and men, they wanna be me, they pay to come see me. Where you at, ballers?
Hornets at Magic, 7 o'clock. Kia Center, Orlando, Florida. A top lean in this game, under 204. This is the third matchup of the year between these two divisional opponents. And we've seen two games already go way over and way under. And this is symptomatic to Charlotte reinventing their roster around the trade deadline. Go back to the only time these teams did play in Orlando this year. It was November 26th, and the total finished 130 to 117. A game that featured Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, and LaMelo Ball, and both teams shooting over 50% from the field. On March 5th, these teams did play in Charlotte, and the game went the total opposite direction. Under 212.5, 101 to 89. This is a new Charlotte roster that plays a slow pace and top defense with Seth Curry, Grant Williams, and Trey Mann. In that game, Orlando only attempted 74 field goal attempts and Charlotte only 72. That's the style of ball we saw in the mid-90s, and books think it will continue, moving the line down from 212.5 to 205, suggesting on average 197 points tonight. Buy this as the top lean in this 7 o'clock game. Under 204, let's cash this ticket.
Rockets at Wizards. Junior Browne back with NBA Shot Clock on this Tuesday, March 19th with another free pick, and we're rocking with Houston minus 9.5. I almost said rocking with the Rockets, but we're rocking with Houston minus 9.5, which is a big number. But I do feel very confident based on what I saw in the last game between these two, where the Rockets won by margin. So let's just start with what the Rockets are right now, because I have not been a big believer in theirs. I thought once Şengün went down that it would become a disaster, but what it's done is actually opened up their offense a little bit, and the possibilities for next year are actually kind of exciting, but still a pretty small sample size, so I'm going to chill on all of that for a little bit. We'll see how they finish out the season. As for this game, they come into this one having won 7 of their last 10. They just beat Washington by margin recently by about, I believe, 16 points. 135-119. And whenever I cap games like this, any game in general, I'm always looking for the most reliable thing between the two teams. So what is that? It's the Houston defense and the Wizards' pace. Because there's this misconception that the Wizards are a good offensive team, which they're not. They're 16th in points per game, which is slightly below average, and they're 26th in offensive efficiency, which is terrible. I'm taking Houston in this game because in the last game where Houston scored 135, it was Washington's pace that won out. Washington's pace allowed them to score 119. It's not Houston's lack of defense. Each of those teams had 103 possessions in that game, and that was in Houston. So if the game was played at Washington's pace in Houston, then I have to assume the game is going to be played at Washington's pace in Washington, which Houston seems absolutely fine with because they put up a $135, and this is a Houston offense that is definitely below average. So give me Houston by margin, a team that has won 7 of their last 8, and those 7 wins have been by 9 points per game. Houston, minus 9.5. Let's cash another ticket, y'all.
Pelicans at Nets, NBA Shot Clock, Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. Best bet of the day. Pelicans -6, 1 unit. The Pelicans started this season 2-3 ATS on the road at the East, but they have turned a corner with emphasis as Zion Williamson has gotten in shape and proven to be the star who was the number 1 pick 4 or 5 years ago. New Orleans is 4-1-1 last 6 ATS road at the East, and 3-1 ATS at East non-playoff teams, a category Brooklyn does fall into. Those games were all margin games. A 20-point win at Washington, a 40-point win at Toronto, and a 13-point win at Atlanta. Line corollaries do matter. Very similar lines in those games. 7, 9, and 6.5. Brooklyn comes home off a 6-game road trip in purely an awful spot. A standalone home game before going back on the road for 4 more road games, starting at Milwaukee on Thursday. Brooklyn is 2-5 ATS, last 7 at home against the Western Conference. Only 2 covers against Utah and San Antonio, not indicative of this matchup at all. Speaking of this matchup directly, these teams did play in New Orleans on January 2nd, and New Orleans hammered the Nets 112-85. The line at New Orleans was -7, and it opens on the road the same figure, showcasing immense strength. New Orleans should win this game by double digits, and margin could develop. It is the best bet of the day. Tuesday, March 19th, 2024, NBA Shot Clock. New Orleans, -6. Let's dominate.
Denver at Minnesota. Junior Browne back with NBA Shot Clock on this Tuesday, March 19th with another free pick. And we're rocking with the under 212.5 in this Denver, Minnesota. What I like to call an early playoff game. If you're not aware, Denver, Minnesota, and OKC are separated by 1 game at the top of the Western Conference standings. Obviously, home court advantage throughout the Western Conference playoffs is going to be one of the most important things because the Celtics are going to have home court advantage in the finals if they make it that far. So Western Conference playoffs, first seed is going to be a bloodbath. Now, because Oklahoma City, Denver, and Minnesota are in the same division, Minnesota and Denver are going to play 3 more times before the end of the season, which means they're going to get physical, they're going to get chippy, because there's so much on the line. This Minnesota crowd is going to be rocking. I cannot possibly lay 7 with Denver against Minnesota. First of all, I really wouldn't lay 7 against Minnesota with any team. Let's just start there, especially not on the road. Minnesota's defense is for real. They will be able to hold the champs to a relatively low score by their standards. And on the flip side, Denver is 11-2 since the All-Star break, only allowing 107 points per game. So both of these teams are playing elite level defense. And I think that because there's going to be so few possessions because of the slow pace of this game, I really believe that it's going to go, I'm not going to say well under 212 because 212.5 is already a low number, but I don't see this game going over 212.5 because of everything at stake. Get your popcorn ready. We're going to get a nice, classic, proper NBA game. None of this running and gunning. It's going to be defense. It's going to be intensity. A lot at stake. Give me the under 212.5. Let's cash another ticket, y'all.
Mavericks at Spurs, 8 o'clock. Frostbank Center, San Antonio, Texas. An official play on the Spurs, +8, 1 unit. San Antonio is one of 4 or 5 teams in this campaign who has an awful straight-up record, but is far better against the spread. The Spurs are 15-53 straight up, headed straight for the lottery, but they have turned a corner. 19-14-2 ATS in their last 35, and 4-2 ATS last 6 at the Frostbank Center. Dallas is the opposite side of this conversation statistically. Dallas started the season 9-4 ATS on the road, 9-9 since, and showcasing a very interesting polarization, cleaning up the East. 10-3 ATS road at the East, while being under 500 road at the West. Speaking of being under 500, the Spurs are 0-3 ATS and straight up against Dallas this year, and this is a dynamic you want to buy in the 4th matchup with the underdog. It is very difficult for a divisional opponent to clean sweep another opponent 4-0 ATS in 1 year, and books are telling us a tight game is coming tonight. In the previous 2 games, both played in Dallas. Dallas blew out the Spurs 144-119, a game that did not feature budding rookie superstar Victor Wembanyama. In the most recent game, played on Valentine's Day, another margin win by Dallas, Dallas did lay 12 points at home, now 8 road, suggesting a game played inside of 7 points. Buy the Spurs tonight at +8, and let's cash this ticket.